Welcome to the Explainer. There's one topic that can give just about anyone a little bit of anxiety, and that's tax penalties. So today, we're going to cut through all that confusion. We're going to make the rules super simple and clear. I mean, let's be real, right? Tax rules can feel like a total maze. And that fear of what if I get something wrong and what that might cost you, well, that feeling is completely normal, and it's what we're here to tackle. So here's the plan. We're going to demystify the whole system. We'll look at the most common penalties, what happens when things get a bit more serious, and, this is the important part, what your rights are through the whole process. Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to start with what is maybe the single most important concept in this entire discussion. Seriously, getting this one idea can be the difference between paying a penalty and not. And that concept is called reasonable cause. Think of this as your secret weapon, because almost every single penalty we're about to talk about can be waived if you had a legitimate reason for the mistake. It's kind of like the system's way of saying, hey, we get it, life happens. Okay, so keeping that idea of reasonable cause in our back pocket, let's move on to the penalties that, honestly, most people are likely to face. We're talking about the basics, late or incorrect paperwork. And this right here is the big one, just plain failing to file on time. If you blow past that deadline and you don't have a good reason, that reasonable cause we just talked about, the penalties start stacking up right away. So, how does it work? Well, it kicks in with a 10% penalty. Now, you're probably asking, 10% of what exactly? It's 10% of the tax that was calculated on your last assessed income. That's the key part. But there's a catch. There's a minimum. The smallest penalty you can face is 1,000 taka. So even if 10% of your last tax bill is less than that, you're still looking at 1,000 taka, minimum. And it doesn't stop there. On top of that initial penalty, they add another 50 taka for every single day you're late. You can see how that could get out of hand really, really fast. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The maximum penalty actually changes based on your history. If you're a first-time filer, there's a lower cap, 5,000 taka. But if you filed before, that cap jumps way up. It can be as high as 50% of your last tax payment. And just so we're clear, this isn't only about your main tax return. Oh no, the law is full of other penalties for not providing specific information when the authorities ask for it. And a lot of these have those same kinds of ongoing daily or monthly fines that just keep adding up until you provide the documents. This next one is a big no-no. The system takes identity fraud very seriously. If you're caught using a fake taxpayer identification number, or a TIN, that belongs to someone else, you could be looking at a penalty of up to 20,000 taka. They do not mess around with this. Okay, so that's the whole world of filing and paperwork penalties. But what if you do file on time, but the numbers are wrong? Or you just don't pay the tax you're supposed to? Let's get into that. Yeah, when it comes to not paying, there are a few different scenarios. If you don't pay enough of your advance tax, the penalty can be up to the amount you shorted them. If you file your return but don't include the payment, that could be a 25% penalty. And in a worst-case default, the penalty can be up to 100% of the tax you owe. That's a lot. But now we get to the most serious one of all. This is the one you really want to avoid. It's called concealment of income. And we're not talking about an honest mistake here. This is about deliberately hiding income or faking expenses to try and cheat the system. And you better believe the penalty is designed to hurt. It's calculated with a pretty tough formula. First, you take 15% of the tax you tried to evade. Then you add another 10% of that evaded tax for every single year it went undiscovered. So the longer you get away with it, the worse the penalty gets when they finally catch you. Okay, so far we've mostly talked about things that affect individuals. But for businesses or anyone with more complex finances, the rules get even stricter. We're talking about the high-stakes world of audits and international transactions. And check this out, because there's a really important distinction here when it comes to audit reports. If there's an honest-to-goodness mistake, the penalty might fall on the accountant who prepared it. But if the taxpayer knowingly submits a fake report, then the blame and a huge penalty falls right on them. And if you're dealing with international transactions, the standards are, well, through the roof. Things like failing to keep the right records or not filing the proper reports can lead to penalties that are based on a percentage of the entire transaction value. I mean, that can add up to an absolutely massive amount of money. All right, so we've been through a lot of penalties, and it might sound a little scary, But what happens if you're actually facing one of these? The good news is it's not a one-way street. The law actually gives you some really important rights and protections. And this is probably the most important thing to remember from this whole discussion. The law is crystal clear on this point. A penalty cannot be finalized against you unless you've been given a reasonable chance to be heard. You have a fundamental right to tell your side of the story. You see, there are checks and balances built right into the system. It's not just your right to hearing. Most penalties have to be signed off on by a senior official. And get this, if your main tax assessment is ever changed or revised, any penalty connected to it has to be revised too. Knowing these rules is absolutely your best defense. So, at the end of the day, learning about all this stuff isn't about being afraid of the penalties. It's about feeling empowered. Knowing the rules helps you avoid the simple mistakes in the first place. And if something does come up, you'll know exactly how to handle it fairly and effectively. So we hope this explainer has given you a much clearer map to follow. Because really, the question isn't if you'll ever make a mistake. We're all human. It's whether you'll know what to do when it happens. And now, you do.